Greetings YouTube, and welcome back to my sketchbook. Apologize for the last video, I cut it off briefly, but that video had been cut off at a staff top that was a magic lantern. So now we're getting into things where I think I'm really starting to get my legs under me again. Here we have a one-handed double weapon, which I think is vaguely kind of a could either be Elven or Klingon. I kind of like that. Here we have an over-the-top combat sickle, not an agricultural tool, but an agricultural tool that has been fully immersed in weaponization. Here we have another double-ended dagger. Here we have a double-ended dagger that actually has a defensive cup. So it's got a classic cup here, so it could be used as a small defensive device, punching, sashing, stabbing. So it's used as an offhanded, left-handed or right-handed if you're left-handed. Here we have a throwing steel, which is based vaguely on both the Hurlbat, which is a European state throwing steel, and the Hungamunga, which is an African throwing steel. Here we have a large chopping sword with a double point and a hollow in it, completely absurd, kind of vaguely making it look like a pinching claw. And I can't remember where I was inspired by that, but it might have been a science fiction world video game or something I saw. Here we have a broad dagger with three blood runnels, kind of take off on the 5-finger Spanish dagger. And here we have another take on a Japanese Yari polearm that is has a cross piece and blades that curve in either directions. Here we have some more knife designs. This is a Norse scramsax. Here we have a Moran Persian design with a handle comprised of both wood and metal, or you can do wood and lucite if you want to do a modern version. I own a hunting knife that has a handle which is comprised of aluminum and lucite. Here we have kind of a fantasy version of a halberd, just kind of taking over the top. This is kind of like this, and that is a little on the thin side for this scale, I think, and that's absurdly thin, so I didn't get the scale right on that. Here we have a strange hand axe, and again I was kind of going for some kind of racial, cultural vibe kind of thing. So it was designed with these pins hold the blade into this wooden handle, which is a slot for the blade, and it kind of curves down like this. So it's a little strange, but kind of an alien feel to it, which I was going for. Here we have a somewhat silly spear, which is a stone tip and bone or wooden cross pieces, probably more symbolic than used. Here we have a kind of almost of a glaive battle axe combination here. So it's designed as a two-handed weapon, but it can be thrust or it can be used as a slashing weapon. And here we have an elven version of that. I wanted to compare the two designs, though it's not quite curvy enough in retrospect. Here we have a double dagger with curved blades. Here we get into more of a proper bastard sword. So you have you can grip the blade here or here, large quillions, sub-quillions, because I like them. They are kind of silly, but I like them. Here we have kind of a harpoon design. Here we have a large chopping sword. This would not be sharp in here, or it could be sharp. It's up to you choice, but I really thought it would be more chopping design than anything. Here we have a take on a Native American stone club. I have no idea how that would work or not. There would probably be a groove in there, and there'd be cordage wrapping this way into the head or something like that. That's how I would design it. Here we have another wooden club, kind of a take on the rifle stock clubs of the Native Americans. Here we have a all steel dagger with a double dagger with a leather wrapped handle. Going for kind of a vaguely science fiction vibe with that. This is a stone club, so the whole thing is carved out of stone. I've seen real world versions of this done in both precious and semi-precious stone. I've seen them done in jade. Here we have a one-handed rifle stock style club with a back spike. Cold Steel actually makes a rifle stock style club with a point on it. I know, I own one, and this is kind of a one-handed version thereof. So now we're getting to the point where I'm starting to own the page better. You'll notice that some of these designs are starting to take up some more space. I'm feeling more confident. So here we have the classic quarterstaff with metal covered tips. So it's a proper double weapon design for combat. It's not just designed for a stick. Here we have a weird spearhead, which was inspired by a logo from a designing company. Morocco, maybe? I can't remember. It was a design company, and I stole that because I had it. I was looking at my shirt and like, hey, that'd make an interesting design. Here we have an elven heavy two-handed sword, or chopping sword, kind of a elven padau. I was inspired by Lord of the Rings here. Here we have a really freaky, weird kind of a axe. It would be thin, but it's all kinds of points going in all directions, and that was intentionally playing with the idea of getting different angles on all of these things. This almost looks like a partisan down here. Here we have a version, this is kind of more symmetrical, of a mace that has multiple points, but it could be thin and kind of a pointed axe as well. Here we have an elven saber. Here we have an elven glaive. The shaft is not depicted. Here we have a dagger, kind of takeoff on a Chinese one-handed weapon. Here we have a sword, and I was going for a very alien science fiction vibe in here, and I think I succeeded. I really like the proportions of this sword. I think it's quite nice. Because these things don't add anything, but I don't think they detract anything, and I think it's well done. Here we have an elven saber, and I just love this. I still love that design. I think I really hit the ball out of the park on that one. Here we have a double dagger. Here we have a naginata, which is a sword with a weapon with a sword and blade about roughly the same length, and this is kind of a ninjato style straight blade. Here we have a staff top with the lightning. Obviously, it's a magic staff that uses lightning. Here we have a curvy kind of double weapon, usable, say, by dwarves, or maybe even used by humans of some variety. Here we have another elven-style saber, but I didn't do this one as well. There should be curves in here that there aren't. But I did like the overall shape of the blade, the way the blade is slightly wider here than it is here. I kind of like almost they cover cutlass. Here we have a chopping sword, vaguely elven in its design, and another over the top, almost a scimitar saber type design here. It's vaguely elven in its layout. Here we have a take on an African shield double spear, which I've always liked that design. And here we have a chopping knife with the point on the back for penetration. So this is kind of a weapon slash tool. This is kind of a silly one-handed chopping weapon, machete. I didn't like that one. Here we have a kind of a long, thin naginata spearhead kind of thing. The shaft is not shown. Here we have a double-pointed pick. I kind of like that one. Here we have a cleaver with a pick back, and I've started to use graining in here, which is a nice change. I've now started to actually appreciate that wood has a look. I'm very happy about that. Here we have a scythe, which is supposed to be used for combat. They're silly. They're fancy weapons. They have no place on the battlefield. Lindy Beige did a nice video about why they're absurd. I need to do one myself. And here we have a very chunky one-handed hammer with a spike on the back and like kind of a meat tenderizer pointed striking head. Here we have a kind of a halberd design, vaguely taken off real-world designs I've seen, maybe a little more delicate, just kind of going for something that's almost ceremonial. Here we have another silly battle scythe with points on the back. Here we have a large double-bitted battle axe, and I still kind of like this design, even though it's chunky and fantasy. I do like it. Here we have kind of a utilitarian sword slash machete. I very angular here, but very curved there. I don't think I got that to meld well, but there you have it. And this is a very over-the-top battle scythe, very much anime stuff. I think I actually did this as a request for someone. I actually did request it one time. I no longer take requests because I no longer sketch, but at one time I did, and this was the January of 2013.